Why does anyone have any respect or confidence in our government? Here's a little clip about this Maxwell woman who's in prison. Take just a second.
Too. So how confident can the rest of us be that Maxwell will reveal what actually happened on Pedo Island and other places? Who was involved? Who paid for it? Were there foreign governments? How confident can we be that she will make it to a courtroom? Ed Gavin is a retired deputy warden for the New York City Department of Correction, the man to answer that question. He joins us tonight. Ed, thanks so much for coming on. Are you concerned that Maxwell won't make it to court?
I think there are some issues that we have to contend with. When you think about what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, he supposedly committed suicide in prison. I don't think so. Dr. Michael Bodner, a renowned pathologist, examined Jeffrey Epstein, and he determined that the hyoid bone was fractured, and that's more consistent with homicide by strangulation instead of suicide by hanging. And of course, the cameras conveniently weren't working there. I don't think the feds can handle these prisoners, such high-profile prisoners like Maxwell or Epstein. If I were William Barr, what I would do is I would seek to obtain a substitute jail order, and I would try to have Miss Maxwell placed on Rikers Island with the New York City Department of Correction. I mean, the jails are empty right now because
There's just one problem with William Barr. When Epstein committed suicide, Barr said that it was just a perfect storm of unusual things happening. And when he said that, I lost all respect for William Barr. I mean, you might, but how anybody could dismiss it as some kind of perfect storm, people not on duty, cameras off, hyoid bone broken, total stupid story. And why I would have any faith in Barr after him claiming it was a perfect storm, not happening.
Blasio has police reform and Cuomo has bail reform, so everybody's out in the street. So there's plenty of room at the inn on Rikers. And then we have an emergency services unit that could handle her. And I think that's the best thing that could happen. And the reason I say that is because the jail that she's currently in, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, is notorious for the sexual abuse of female inmates. And let me give you a couple of examples. In 2011, there was a female correction officer there. She had sex on duty with 8...
I gotta stop. This is our government. This is our government.
8 employees. 2 of them were superior officers. She also had sex with 2 inmates. One was a gangbanger and a drug dealer, and the other one killed 2 New York City police detectives. And finally, we have a lieutenant and 2 correction officers recently who were convicted of, sexually abusing over 10 women. The lieutenant was in charge of the unit, and he was one of his functions was to teach the training officers how to prevent rape in prisons is actually raping the inmates. So I don't think that facility is capable of handling it. There's just too much that's gone on there recently, and I don't think any female inmate should be housed there. And another thing I firmly believe, I don't believe female inmates should be housed in the same facility with male inmates. It just doesn't make any sense, and we need to change that.
Right, unless you believe there's no difference between the sexes, in which case you're a moron. Here's what bothers me. I don't think anybody mourns the death of Jeffrey Epstein as a man. But what does this say about the country? When a guy can be possibly murdered in a jail cell, it suggests that a lot of people played along with that. The people who are supposed to be watching him, perhaps officials at the facility. Why are none of them in deep trouble right now? Why don't we know the truth? I don't understand.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because we have corrupt police officials, we have corrupt officials in the FBI, we have corrupt officials in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I mean, just look at what Jeffrey Epstein did going back 10, 15 years ago. He paid money to the Palm Beach Police Department. Police departments shouldn't be accepting money from private citizens. No. What sex offender gets work release from jail? The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office facilitated that. Epstein formed a company so that he could pay deputy sheriffs to babysit him while he was on work release. Now, I was a deputy warden for security and programs at a New York City correctional facility in 2000. and we housed about 400 sex offenders. I never had one sex offender that was released on work release. It's unheard of. So then you had the state's attorney way back when, who didn't even bother to interview the children or their parents. Now, as you know, Tucker, now I've been doing human trafficking investigations for the last 14 years in the streets of New York. So I know a lot about that. And Child Protective Services was never notified, the Family Court was never notified, and Social Services never had an opportunity to protect those children. So law enforcement has blown this from the very beginning. And now all of a sudden, 10 years later, they arrest Jeffrey Epstein at an airport.
Exactly.
Now all of a sudden, they find this clown up in New Hampshire. Give me a break.
I totally
The law
agree.
enforcement authorities that have handled this, it's just bizarre. I've never heard of anything like it. I do not trust the people that were involved in this investigation.
Right. So instead, they're crushing local police departments, but nobody is saying this. No, I agree. Yeah, give me your 10 seconds.
Departments.
Exactly. And thank you for that. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Rotten through and through. So long.